Firstly, thank you all for coming. I know you'll have to brave traffic across town and so many other things, so really appreciate you all being here. This talk has been I would say a few years in the making, trying to get Cyrus and Eliza to be here. Finally, the stars aligned and our schedules aligned, and they are here today. Really grateful to them for making the time to be here with us. Very briefly, CollectiveProject is a design studio founded in Bangalore, India by Cyrus Patell and Eliza Higgins in late 2013. As an approach, the studio believes in responsive design that is considered personal and unique. Their approach does not begin with preconceived ideas of form and style. Instead, it evolves through building on personal stories, material interests and explorations, and an understanding of the site and its context. With each new project, the approach is fluid but specific to the place, with a strong focus on detailing and spatial narratives. Eliza Higgins studied architecture at Roger Williams University's School of Architecture and at Yale in the US. Before founding CollectiveProject, Eliza practiced as a designer in the offices of Canon Design, Deborah Burke Partners, and Diller Scofidio and Renfro on institutional, hospitality, and cultural projects. Cyrus Patell studied architecture at RV College of Architecture in Bangalore and at Yale University in the US. Before founding CollectiveProject, he worked with the office of Raul Mehrotra in Mumbai and Cohn at KPF, Cohn, Perez and Fox in New York. Cyrus enjoys exploring the intersection between digital design and handcrafted production through personal studies of objects and furniture. Guys, thanks for being here. Welcome.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having us, and Kushru for the invite. Okay. We started CollectiveProject in December of 2013 and are constantly evolving and questioning how we work together, grow as a practice, and balance different perspectives across our work. Over the past 10 years, we are clear that our contrasting approaches, contradictions, and varied backgrounds greatly enrich our practice. Eliza grew up in rural New York, surrounded by forest and gardens, and I grew up in the middle of Bangalore. There are many practices in today's India that are preoccupied with speed and scale, and others perhaps more concerned with the sentiment of craft. We are a slow practice, detail-obsessed, and interested in exploring an architectural language that has an international outlook, but is hyper-local in its response and materiality. We are more concerned with space making and experience than we are with form. Above all else, we want to be a responsible practice that is considered, intuitive, and specific. In India, we're all really fortunate to be surrounded by an abundance of material, stones, bamboo, terracotta, etc., and a wealth of traditional building knowledge and skill, as well as a cost of construction that allows a lot of experimentation. We've structured this talk under 5 themes, captured through 5 different projects, each building off of learnings and narratives from the other. Located in a major suburb of Bangalore that until 15 years ago was just open farmland, and you can see in the next images the sort of growth over the last 15, 20 years. This project strives to create a quiet retreat for a young family of 5 in an otherwise densely populated and very unplanned community. Our project was constructed on the foundations of a small brick house that the family had purchased 20 years prior, and had since outgrown. This is an image of that old house that was made of local brick and had these sort of archetypal roofs. The house builds off of the existing palette and angular plinth, as well as interconnected spaces, and sort of challenge the assumptions of load-bearing construction. On the left is a diagram of the existing structure, and the right, the modifications we made to it. The family was keen to retain the sloping roofs. During conversations with them, we realized it had little to do with the actual form, but the experience from the inside. So we reinterpreted this through a series of one-directional sloping roofs with clear-story windows that allow for softer north and east light through the day. These plans show the layout that was a direct result of extending that existing footprint, and that's this. To enclose a central court with a high level of porosity between spaces both at the ground floor as well as across to the upper levels through double heights and diagonal views. Using hand-molded table bricks with natural variation and imprecision in size and shape, the new project celebrates the imperfection of the material and the manner in which it is laid. These images show the new house under construction, completely load-bearing walls using this imperfect brick, some reclaimed from the old structure that was taken down, as well as new bricks sourced from a town about 80 kilometers away that made the original brick. And all of this to slowly shape something that is very precise. The tension between traditional building methods and these contemporary geometries is softened by the introduction of porous jali screens, as well as contrasting shadow patterns of the textured brick surfaces. This is a photograph from the rear of the house, sort of looking at the living room, the bar, family spaces at the lower level, and you kind of also see the clear stories above. This image shows the geometry, these contrasting materials and the textures of the home. We also just wanted to show a little bit about how the structure was made through the narrative of the space. A double height between the family lounge and library above and the open kitchen and dining space below ensures interconnectedness. The dad joked that he wanted a space that he could watch his kids coming home at night. And so this kind of family space is the heart of the home and a visual connection between the public and private spaces of the house. The slabs and beams were set in by one brick to allow a continuous uninterrupted volume from the outside. The rough brick is contrasted with these crisp metal punches forming windows, window seats, and clear stories. The small triangular court at the center of the home stays a reminder of the original foundation and the history of the site, creating complete porosity between inside and out. This is the master bedroom at the back corner of the property with views out to the last remaining parcels of farmland in the area. This is an image from the front road. While the house has a clear identity, this isn't sacred to us, and we would be happy for it to disappear in landscape and planting over time. The lake house is a private space for entertaining and a respite from urban life. The property is embedded in the heart of Hyderabad in an area that was for various reasons remained undeveloped and felt completely removed from the city. But this has also changed in the last very short time since the project's been built. These are some older images of the incredible land formations that make up the region, slowly being lost to development. The project is located on a steep sloping site overlooking the Durgam Cheravu Lake. Due to this topography, the site has prime views across the water to a nature reserve on the right and the contrasting density of high-tech city in the distance, which is at this point just starting to be built out. This is a 150-acre tech park that has become a prominent sort of part of the urban landscape. Sorry, one sec. What is that?
It's not advancing?
No. This goes back. Was it? Nah.
Yeah, it's not.
All right, well.
Imagine that there are these volumes that are opening
Yeah.
up to capture views.
Yeah, the 3 portals. Anyway, yeah. So sort of, let's go back. Oh, yeah. So contrary to the standard architectural response in Hyderabad to fill, level, and clear the site, the lake house hovers above the land, allowing the natural terrain to become a celebrated focus of the architectural experience. From the road on the top of the plan there, the building appears solid and opaque, concealing the panoramic views that are framed by these portals at the bottom. A tension between heavy and light was used to establish a strong material and spatial logic. Along the road, the structure was made in a heavier masonry construction, while the structure towards the lake appears to float in a lighter steel frame. The masonry on the flatter portion of the site is also used to structurally pin back the cantilevered steel structure. The early brief was to build something that was temporary, that could be maybe taken down if needed, but we wanted to build something that was permanent. And about 7 or 8 years in, this space is being used almost every single day, and it's not going anywhere. The structure is clad with slabs and thin ribs of a local grey granite. This creates a subtle sort of play of shadow while maintaining privacy from the neighbors. These stone-clad volumes really showcase the skill and precision of the masons who executed the stonework, everything on a very strict, repetitive 300 module. These are images from the lake of the finished project, looking at the cantilevered stone volumes with portals clad in wood. Details of the stone cladding, these are some details of the stone cladding with the wood screens that allow for filtered views to these landscape courtyards around the house. The landscape also highlights the transition between wet and dry as an integral part of the experiential narrative. As one passes through the building, you get a first glimpse of the view beyond. Slowly, this lush verdant planting of the entrance and passage falls behind, and the dry and sort of rocky landscape of Hyderabad reveals itself, along with this extraordinary panoramic view out to high-tech city, which is now fully built out. The wood cladding continues along the interior to create this continuity between inside and out, also framing these views and the portals. You know, this image of the bar with high-tech city in the distance with its lights and construction cranes is a reminder of where you are, but could also transport you anywhere in the world.
Today, sustainability is a buzzword, used very loosely and often just as a quick response, visual response to materials used. This is unfortunate given the rich heritage of resourceful climate-based construction of the past. With materials as a core interest of our studio, we are constantly exploring new methods of construction that are sensitive, local, and long-lasting. In this context, for us, saying we are a responsible studio is a more meaningful approach. And I think to tie into some of the other work that we've shown and the projects that we'll go over now, we are interested in responsible solutions, which include sustainable strategies, but also in a way that it's hidden. It's not something that needs to scream, I am, incorporating all these technologies. We want it to be something that is embedded as part of it by default. So for us, we're much more interested in the type of materials and the way that they translate into a contemporary form. And it's just a given that certain solutions are automatically incorporated. One second. In June 2018, we were approached by a family of 4 who had recently purchased a 3,000 square foot property in one of Bangalore's oldest residential neighborhoods. This property is really unique in that it's in an inner corner with only 12 feet of road frontage. So if you see here, this is called DaCosta layout. It's an exception to the grid in this area. To the backside is a church property, and so we have a little tiny bullock cart path that's here, and then just green around, and the road frontage is just this corner right here. So in the initial conversations, we discussed reusing and adding to the existing 60-year-old structure. But after visiting the site, we realized that this wasn't a viable solution based on their programmatic needs and adjacencies, especially since they had 2 children and plans for elderly parents to move into the home. This unfortunately meant that the home would have to be demolished and disposed of. So in Bangalore, land values are disproportionate to construction costs. So existing construction is given little or no value. This means that there's a constant cycle of demo and rebuild, especially as zoning laws change to allow for more density. Without clear regulations, most demolition waste is sent to illegal dumping areas, often dry lake beds or urban abandoned sites, and it's becoming more and more difficult to find ways to dispose of debris. So in this diagram, when we first were working on the brick house that Cyrus showed before, we really wanted to reuse all the existing brick. And unfortunately, it just wasn't possible in that project. So at that time, we started thinking about waste as a resource and how could we use it going forward in our project. So when this house came along, we pitched this to our clients as an idea, and they were really excited about it. So here is just thinking about something that is just dumped and disposed of versus a material that actually has a lot of potential to create a new home in a new language. Yeah. So we were fortunate that the old house was primarily built in brick and mud with very little steel reinforcement. I mean, it was actually amazing that the slabs would stand. They were so thin, but what this meant is that it could easily be broken down by hand. If it had been a higher percentage of concrete, it would have had to be broken down industrially, which would have meant that the material had to go for a very long distance, and this wouldn't have been a viable solution. But for us, this house was the perfect option to explore material reuse in a way where it stayed on the site and took on a new form. So we worked with a professor from IISC who specializes in mud construction to confirm the viability of our approach, finalizing on a palette of mud plaster, mud concrete tiles, and mud concrete block. The mixture was then refined and tested for durability and load-bearing capacity. Since we did not have any major excavations on the site, the soil was sourced from ongoing construction sites in the area. The total buildup of the house is around 4,700 square feet. Sorry, I'm just going back. So here you can see this is the road frontage here. This is the bullock cart path. This is actually not part of the client's property, but what we've done is we've kept this compound wall very low, and they're maintaining this with planting. The church property wraps around the back, and what we've done is actually take the form and rotate it to respond to this very large, it's a huge mango tree that was really a highlight of the site. As you enter here, you come into the living room, dining room, kitchen, and then there's one bedroom on the ground floor. As you go upstairs, these are the bedrooms, again organized around a central family room. This becomes the heart of the home. It's a concept that just seems to work very well with these young families. Another interesting point here is that we had originally imagined that the stone floor would move throughout the house, but the parents, having seen how their children reacted to a wood floor in their current apartment, really wanted to have this because they felt that their kids engaged with the floor in a different way. So they could run, they could slide, and to us that was a really interesting feedback to incorporate. And on the second floor, here you can see that there's a cutout to the bottom where there's a staircase that moves throughout all the levels. We have an office, a music room, and a little terrace with a pergola where the mango tree comes over the top. So with limited space at the ground level, this model shows how terracing was used to bring landscape to every level. With the building completely disappearing from above, any open space left on the terrace was used for services, including a heat pump and solar, exceeding the building's capacity for power. So given the inner corner condition, we were really concerned about natural light coming into the space. The skylights here illuminate the core of the home, and they allow for light to move throughout different spaces in different ways. We also played with planter depths. If you see over the entrance drive here. This is a really deep planter. Part of the client's wish list was to have fruit trees around the house. And with such small setbacks, we were able to accomplish that by bringing them at different levels of the home. So right now we have a big grapefruit tree over the garage. We have lemon on the terrace. There's just all these different plants around the home that have personal meanings to the people that live there. So one of the major challenges of this process, and I think in a perfect condition, we would be using the waste on the site. We would be getting the soil from the excavation on the site, and then we would be casting blocks in the same location. This is a perfect world. It's not perfect in general. So we had to find a location to cast the blocks. And this was a challenge in Bangalore because any production of, a building material like this could be viewed as a commercial venture, which would lead to problems. So we eventually found a site that was about 6 kilometers away from our location that was large enough to house the workers, to hold the materials, and to do the casting. So this casting happened as the structure was building up. And seeing this process was really incredible. I mean, to the image on the left, here, you can see the bits of, you have the brick, you've got a little concrete, you've got tiles. The whole history of the original home is there. It's then broken down into smaller pieces. You can see here on the right side image that they're separating the concrete that will be used for aggregate in the process. And then you just have the materials being kind of pulled apart and then brought back together as we make the blocks. So the final, we tested many different recipes, we'll call them. We looked at strength, we looked at color. We started off with this kind of designer approach to saying, we want this exact color, and then very quickly realized that that's not something that we can control. It's so dependent on where the soil comes from. But the final mixture was brick debris, hard debris, which was the concrete, sand, soil, cement, quarry dust from the local quarries, and lime water. So just a few images of the process. And we actually have a video of this, but it doesn't capture the beauty of the process. I mean, there were stations for every material. There was a proportion that was assigned to it. And then when the machine started, it was like a dance. So you had one guy coming with lime here, one guy coming with the brick debris here, and it was all put into the mixer. And it was just this incredible process to watch. And so then after it was mixed, it was poured into the custom molds that we made. It was then vibrated by hand. Again, ideally you would want to do mechanical vibration. It would give you a more even finish, but here, due to the site, we did it by hand. It was then smoothed, and finally it was air dried. So we did in total about 8,000 blocks. They were then stacked, dried on site, and when we were ready for them, they were transported. So when the blocks were cast on site, I mean, we were beyond thrilled. I mean, they were beautiful. The color was beautiful, But then what happened was, through the process of transporting them, there would be a little bit of damage. And then as they were brought into the property and stacked, there would be a little bit more damage. And this made us realize, one of the main learnings from this process was about, I think there's a responsibility in terms of the materials you use, and there's also a responsibility in terms of the way that it's executed. And the advisor that we had on the project, when we initially went to him and we told him we wanted a certain size block, he advised us to use a smaller block. And we were in design mode, and we were like, no, we want this proportion. It's really important. And, in the end, the blocks were very big and very heavy, which led to difficulty in terms of placing them higher. And so it's something that definitely in the future we would make smaller blocks. That module was important to us. Everything was designed exactly for that. But that was something that we would do differently next time. I mean, there was actually this funny moment when, I don't think any of us could lift the blocks. They were too heavy. So this is showing the process. Originally when we were brainstorming about this home, we had thought about doing ram doors. We were thinking about all these different materials. It just didn't make sense for the qualities of space that we were trying to create. When we start designing, we spend a lot of time talking to our clients, understanding how they live, and through the adjacencies and the narratives that we're looking at, a lot of times our structures have to be complex. We do a lot of floating columns. In the end, it doesn't lend itself necessarily to load-bearing construction. And so very quickly we removed ram earth from our concept, and we wanted to use this block in a different way. So these blocks are incredibly strong. They can be load-bearing, but we did a frame structure and then infilled it with block.
Yeah.
So this, to us, is something that is incredibly special. This is a story that is personal to us. It's personal to our client. When you visit the house, you would never know that this is there. But this is the old transformed into the new. It's maybe for a future project we'll use this because it's just very cool. But for this home, our clients went back to the original homeowners of the house, and they kind of got to know them. They did a little video of the whole experience, and also, it is something that's really nice. There is a story. It is very personal, and in the end, it's for us and the people that live there. It's for no one else, and you, I guess, we're sharing it. So these are just a few images of the home after it was done. The whole ground floor is open. For us, connection to nature is really important. It doesn't matter how small the property is. And I think this comes from our own way of wanting to live. Like, I can't imagine being in a space without seeing something green. So the ground floor is completely open. You can see here that the landscape just spills around. The ground floor is primarily exposed concrete, and then the blocks continue up above. The blocks themselves look very precise here. You would have no idea that they're made from debris, but that's something that is very interesting to us. This is just looking at the entrance. You've got the volume floating above, landscape around. The dining room here. Originally, the family didn't even want a dining table, but we, convinced them that it was important, and then after we finished the space, they wanted a 10-seater, and of course 10-seater won't fit. So that's just some of the process and the conversations that happen over time. This is one of the skylights. There are two skylights that frame the living room, and then there's a central cutout that brings light down through the home. This is at the upper level, the top skylight, the staircase wrapping down. There are a few moments for us, even in the brick house, we love playing with these materials in terms of form, but when you think about a home, sometimes being surrounded by brick or being surrounded by mud block can be too much. Sometimes you just want that relief of a white wall. So we play with it strategically to ensure that you're constantly aware of the materials that create the home, but that there's also a moment of visual relief using other colors and surfaces. This is a view looking into the family room with the staircase dropping down, and you can see diagonally down to the living room below. The family room, again, the heart of the home, all the bedrooms opening off of this space. And one of the daughter's bedrooms. Here, what was interesting is in Bangalore, in every city, safety is a concern, especially when you have young children. And this bedroom was facing the road. So a lot of times people they say we want grills. But for us, grills in the window takes away from the whole experience. It takes away from the visual connection. So what we did is we actually created these jolly blocks. And we have so this is fixed glass, and this window slides. And it slides in such a way that you can still clean it, because that's obviously the first question that clients have: how do you clean these windows? And there's a mosquito mesh that's integrated into the system. So this window slides open, the mosquito mesh comes, and you have security and ventilation whenever required, and otherwise it just slides shut, and you're good to go. This is a view from the terrace. You see the pergola here, and this is the big mango. It's huge, that just kind of cascades above. And this is our little bit of road frontage. Our hope is that this just completely gets taken over with planting. And this is the one hint that the public has of the house that's behind. The driveway with light cascading down. And this view, I think, captures our, wish for architecture. It's completely embedded in the landscape. You have this porosity between different levels. I mean, here you can see someone sitting in the living room here, the connection to the family room, the connection to the terrace, and the fact that this is just completely softened by the landscape around it. And another view. These views we're actually standing on the neighbor's roof, so this is not something that anyone would ever get, but we just really like this moment. Okay, so the next project, and this is something that's really special for us, is a school that we did. In 2016, we were approached by the Pune cement factory to create a prototype school that could be used for their factories across the region. As part of their corporate social responsibility program, they provide free education to all their workers' children. At first, we were hesitant because we'd been approached for many schools before. The conversation always starts out positive and then turns to something that's like, we want it really fast, we want it very cheap, and oh yes, we want something that looks really good, but we've got this franchise called Sesame Street franchise, and you realize in the end that it is not about the quality of education or the quality of space. It's just someone looking at it from a financial perspective. So for us, this project, something was different. As part of the initial conversation, As part of the initial conversation, the client explained that they saw an opportunity for design not only to empower the students, but also to provide a better culture and work environment for their teachers. She had seen an adaptive reuse Montessori school that we had finished a few years prior in Bangalore, and felt that as a company, their schools needed to be better. So the first site was selected. The first site that was selected was an existing 18-year-old school adjacent to their oldest cement factory. The existing L-shaped building was on a 2-acre site, but situated in the far corner. This area is really hot and dry, and it gets to around 43 degrees Celsius, and there's almost no rain. So this photo was actually taken on our first visit, and this is after they freshly painted it, because our client had visited like a month before, and as soon as she took interest into it, they gave it like a little top up in terms of painting. But we were really taken with her passion and kind of her recognition that as a company, there was a lot that they could do to improve the education of their students. So these are just a few images showing the existing school. I mean, the bathrooms were located at the far corners of the site because of Vastu, and these were tiny children. In their homes, they don't have formal bathrooms. This is something that, there was an opportunity in the school to teach hygiene, to teach different things, but because of the bathroom locations, the children never even made it. I mean, when we were there, the little tiny kids would just go around the back of the, back of the building, and that's as far as they could go. So that was one area that we realized that there needed to be improvement. The classrooms were oversized. There was very little light, very little ventilation. The existing structure was sound, but the chajas and the overhangs and everything was just very, very heavy, so there was no life to it. You can see at the bottom, the center image, that was a cycle stand. They do provide bicycles for all of their students because they come from, within the area, but some of them do come from farther. And, this is the principal's room at the bottom. So even during the day, he needs a tube light on. So in this image, you can see the relationship between the school site and the cement factory next door. I don't know how many people have visited cement factories, but they're really, it's like being in a movie. It's a very different, very industrial experience. The green landscape around the factory is maintained as part of their campus, and the school is adjacent to that campus. So while there is greenery in that particular location. The rest of the surrounding area is bare, and this is actually on a plateau, and then it drops off. It's a really fascinating landscape, and in the distance you can see a 40 megawatt solar field that came up during the process. It's also spotted by wind turbines. So as you climb up to this plateau, you start to see the turbines, and then you drive through the solar field, and then you just hit this kind of dry, rocky landscape. So to kick off the project, we outlined our goals. We set out to create a strong identity that was also playful and unique. We wanted to create a high impact and cost-effective experience by using locally available materials and upskilled labor. We wanted to limit the major built form to the existing structure with an optimized internal layout and additional program pavilions on the ground level to allow for a stronger integration with the site. And we wanted to capitalize on the 2-acre property, currently unusable because of the heat and no shade, by establishing programmatic pockets in multi-purpose areas that could be used during the school hours, but also as a community resource. So while the client was open to taking down the old building, we wanted to keep the existing structure. We had really enjoyed the process of the adaptive reuse project that we did on an old watch factory into a Montessori school. And there's something about these large span spaces that is really conducive to academic environments. This building just needed a facelift, that's all. So we kept the existing structure. We made several modifications to it, and then we added a series of learning pavilions. We also, if you can see here with the blue arrows, we opened up the ground floor to make a stronger connectivity to the washrooms behind and also the dining area. So then the children didn't have to walk all the way around to the far corners of the site. We reworked the existing oversized classrooms to increase the school capacity from 400 to 600 students, and we opened up the facade for far more light and ventilation. A subtle but strategic use of color and pattern through jollies gives each classroom an identity. Gathering spaces are important for any learning institution. To respond to the climate, we introduced pockets of landscape using regional plants and trees to not only soften the architecture, but to also provide shaded spaces for the children to come together. Now, all this is tied together by 15,000 12-foot long bamboo poles that form a playful undulating canopy that connects the main building to these pavilions. The additional canopy, along with the pavilions, doubles the total usable area in the school from 20,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. And when we initially made this proposal, we had no idea that the client was actually going to go for it. I mean, this is something that they could have said no to any of these things. And after we made our presentation, they just, I mean, everyone was on board. It was really incredible. So you enter the property from here. This was our initial proposal for some landscape thing that maybe will happen in the future someday. This is the cycle stand, and this is a little waiting area for parents. Before, there was only trees along this edge, and all the parents would come in and sit here. So now they have a shaded place to stay. This is a little store for them to pick up the books, and uniforms is required. Cycle stand, and then as you come in, this whole area that you see in gray is actually part of the canopy. There's a little sand pit here for the tiny kids, kindergarten and pre-K, and then you have all the classrooms, labs, teachers' rooms. This is a bathroom, and multi-purpose space here, and then we have a dining hall here and an art room. And on the upper, so the lower floor is for the little kids up to 5th grade, and on the upper level, it's for the older students. This also has a computer lab, a science laboratory, and a faculty space for the upper grade teachers. Now, there were two main challenges during the construction. One was material supply and labor at a really remote site. We made a conscious effort to ensure that the materials were sourced locally. Nothing came from more than 100 kilometers away. This includes the bamboo that was harvested through local local government forestry programs. The stone floors used waste from the stone processing facilities in the villages nearby. The cement came directly from the factory next door, and this was used for the wall construction as well as the jolly screens that were cast on site. Finally, the facade was finished with a simple cement plaster, and the labor was local, largely upskilled, but trained and supervised by the engineers from the cement factory. The second challenge, and I think that this is a challenge for any project that involves CSR funds, is that the school had to remain operational for the 6 years of construction. This was something that we were in it for as long as it was going to take. It would pick up pace, it would slow down. It just was as the money was available. But it was amazing how the factory team, the faculty, and the students just went along with the process. We had to zone the construction, the students moved around. At some point, they would be sitting outside on foldable lawn chairs with just like a little board doing their exams. It was just, everyone had a smile. It was just really incredible. And the head engineer of the plant who oversaw this process, at some point, it was like maybe 4 years in, he was like, we were walking around the site and he was like, everyone asked me, what are you doing? You could build like 4 cement plants in this amount of time. And he was like, come to the school and see what we've done, and then you'll understand. And so for us, that was really meaningful that, every site has its frustrations, but here, I think everyone was really doing it from their heart. Here are a couple of shots of the classrooms in the canopy during the construction. This was just, every time we came to site, these kids would just stand up and say hello and have huge smiles. And you can see here the pieces of the waste flooring being laid. There's a Kadapa, this is not far from Kadapa, and all the processing happens in this area. So we just want to share a quick video right after the rains. Yearly there's 1 month of lush green before everything goes dry. This really captures the spirit, character, and joy now that the school is being used. And there's a nice soundtrack to this. Okay, sorry about that. The video seems to be slightly slow, so but it's amazing the difference between this area after the monsoons and when it's dry. I mean, here it looks fully green, but otherwise it would just be a nice brown. And you can see here just the relationship between the infrastructure of the factory and the school in the distance, solar panels beyond, and then actually the horizon line is where it drops off from the plateau. So the school follows the government-mandated state board curriculum, which provides a good base but is limited. The client's brief was to increase the school's resources to broaden the students' exposure. The art pavilion is one of these spaces. Here are 2 vignettes showing some of the special moments in the school. The image to the right is a view into one of the classrooms with large windows for light and jali screens on opposite exterior walls to ensure cross-ventilation. Because of its rural location and student demographic, malnutrition was a major concern. With the addition of a kitchen and dining pavilion, lunch is now cooked for the students daily, and our hope is that this expands into a larger vocational training program where the children can be involved in their own meals. In most schools, it's common to have large plastic bottles to dispense drinking water. Here we wanted to have a little bit of fun, and we had a really supportive fabricator that helped us out. So we made the experience more accessible, more engaging by creating a water fountain wall outside of the dining area. A few moments captured below the bamboo canopy, showing the undulating trellis and branching structure. Again, with the structure, this is something that the client wanted to use their structural engineer, and we were like, oh no, a cement factory structural engineer, what is what is going to happen? And they just got into it, and we were able to accomplish exactly what we wanted. Even the Vastu consultant that the client had, at first he was like, all the walls and all the corners need to be right angles, and then we went back and we were like, but this is a school, we want that soft corner, and so he was like, okay, fine, I get it. I have a young child as well, and so he said it's okay for the exterior corners to be curved as long as the interior corners were straight. Small clusters of seats and tables create moments for individual study and conversation within the landscape pockets. And outside the kindergarten pavilion, a window ledge becomes an informal place for study. In the distance, an elevated platform acts as a stage. This is used for special functions, and it can also be used as a larger community resource during non-school hours. Outside the pre-K classrooms, the smallest students have an outdoor protected play zone. And this is just a nice moment captured when the teachers arrive in the morning. If you see here the way that these concrete bands peel, when we first started the project, as a practice, I think we become very obsessed with precision, and for us to relinquish that control is a little bit difficult. So we said, okay, this is a rural school, we have to accept imperfection. And because this was actually built by engineers from the cement factory and not people that had construction experience, the engineers themselves really geeked out, and they went and they made sure that every line was straight, every corner terminated properly, and in the end our civil quality was probably better than most of the high-end residences that we do. It just took time, that's all. So on the upper level, the experience of the bamboo canopy completely changes. It becomes more graphic and is punctuated by green roofs that are from the pavilions below. This is just another view. This is during the dry season, so you can see that the bougainvillea is very happy. I love this image. It shows the contrast between the light bamboo canopy and the industrial infrastructure of the factory beyond. It wasn't until the project was complete that we registered the way that the colors of the cement factory, the soft blues, the pinks, and the grays, had influenced our color selection. Projects like this are incredibly rewarding, and we hope that this brings awareness to the impact that design can have on overlooked communities. So now this is the last project that we're going to share. This is something that is currently under construction, and we think about this as permanence, and I think that this is something that ties into, our philosophy as a practice of responsible design. And so permanence is something that we discuss a lot. How a building, how a space weathers, its lifespan, its perceived connection to place. For us, permanence is not just about the materials used, but also about the strength of connection to the end user, how it responds to their needs, how it makes them happy, planned flexibility that allows for the home to evolve over time, a growing, shrinking family, changing mobility, changing climate, not limited by a particular aesthetic or moment or trend. So practicing in Bangalore, we've always appreciated the use of Sadahali granite. It's the cheapest you can buy. It's not the prettiest, but the quarries are really close, about 30 kilometers from the city. Examples shown here, like the Kempegowda Fort, which was originally built in mud block and then expanded and fortified in stone in the 1760s. On the lower left is the Book Society building in the heart of the city, which is now the Hard Rock Cafe, right? And, the building next to it. But this was in the early 1900s. Then, of course, you have Doshi's IIM, and in the 80s, and the residential architecture of the 90s that was so prominent and is now going away. So due to increasing costs, speed of construction, and rapid development, concrete blocks and aeroconcrete blocks have become the most popular building material. And I don't want to lie and say that we don't use them, because we totally use them, but here we're focusing on some of the smaller projects where we can have a really strong kind of cohesive material logic. Obviously, as the scale of a project changes, your strategy as an architect has to change. But a lot of times, people follow the approach of cheap and best. It's not about how it's going to last. It's not about how it's going to weather. It's just about kind of creating a space, getting it done as fast as possible. So in 2021, we were approached by a couple who had recently purchased an 8,000 square foot site at the foot of Nandi Hills, approximately 60 kilometers from Bangalore city center. Nandi Hills is a tourist destination of spiritual significance, but it also became a development hotspot after the pandemic, and actually in the last few years it's really exploded in terms of people wanting to buy and build there. The area is also famous for being part of the oldest bedrock that formed on the Indian subcontinent 3.5 billion years ago. This is really amazing, considering that the Himalayas are only about 50 million years old. So kicking off the project, we knew that we wanted to build in a way that was a tribute to the past, that had that weight, that permanence that the stone architecture of Bangalore had. We wanted it to be grounded, we wanted it to be specific to place, but we also wanted to find a way to do it responsibly. So we thought back to 2016, when we first went to this Penna cement factory. On the way, we drove through the stone processing towns where Kadapa, this is where they process Kadapa, and the roads were covered with waste from the offcuts of the production process. And we were really blown away by the fact that in this little village, the community had adopted this material as their standard form of construction. The structures are completely load-bearing, and they were beautiful in their own way. We were like, okay, this is like a Zumthor project, but it's, in this village. It was really incredible, the way the stone is used. Sometimes it's plastered, sometimes it's left exposed. And in this area, due to the road widening, they've been knocking these buildings down. So when you go, you actually see them in section, which is also quite, it's sad, but interesting at the same time as an architect. So by chance, when this Nandi Hills project started, we were also doing our office floor. And this was an old house that we were just touching up, and so we wanted to use stone, and we wanted to save money. And so we were looking, cheap and best. When it comes to yourself, it's cheap and best. So we were looking at 10 mm granite tiles. They used to be really popular. Now they're not as much, but the Sadali ones are still going strong. So after researching the process, we realized that there are these small quarried blocks that are then cut into 1x2 tiles. But if you can see here, you have the module of the tile, but then there's all this kind of like extra stuff that's there. And we realized that the same waste was being generated very close to the Nandi Hills site. So we said, let's use it. Let's see what we can do with this. We had really wanted to use the Kadapa waste, but then when you consider the transportation associated with driving it such a far distance, it doesn't really make sense. This made sense to us, and we were really fortunate to have clients that were interested. So this was the moment of truth with our client checking the wall mock-up. And what we were very clear that this was not going to be a fast process, but this was something that the building would be finished, the exterior of the building would be finished as these walls were constructed. And for them, they really liked that idea. They also liked that it was connected to place. They liked the texture. They liked the color. So all of that kind of came together nicely. So just quickly taking you through the site location. This is part of a plotted community, but everyone can build their own house however they want it. Originally, it was a Bali theme. As you see, we did not pay attention to that, or maybe we forgot to read that part or pay attention to that part. So the site, one second, we just kind of took the massing up, looking at what we could do. And as a response, we started to play with the volumes, looking at sun and views. And then, of course, how we integrated with the landscape. At Bangalore, the climate is great. It allows for plants to be inside and out, and AC is becoming a bigger thing, but we can really capitalize on the outdoors. So the ground floor, as maybe you can tell, we like to play with our plans a little bit, but this all comes from thinking through experiences. It's really about the relationship between spaces. This is for a couple that are looking to move here full-time. They don't have kids, it's just them, and we really wanted to create a space that was special. They do a lot of entertaining, but it's at a small scale. So on the ground level, you've got your kitchen, dining, living, a little bit of a bar. It spills out to the landscape. There's one guest bedroom on the lower level and staff area. And then on the upper level, we have this bridge that connects across kind of a partial height, partial level family room and the primary bedroom along with the guest bedroom. Next slide. This is the upper level. And just a quick shot of the physical model from above showing the porosity. So I think one thing about our projects is that we tend to make, I think from the exterior you can't really tell the complexity of the spaces, and even the photographs don't really capture the way that you kind of things open and close. So here the model, although you see from the outside it's a very opaque structure, inside it's very porous, very open. So again, we started with this kind of ideal notion of how we were going to build this. So we started with the idea of let's do some load-bearing walls. The idea was that we took the sharp edge of the offcut from the tile production, and we put the jagged edge on the inside, which allowed us to keep that precision of the exterior. Again, this is a hidden story. It's something that the homeowners and we are very aware of, very passionate about, but anyone driving by would have no idea. This load-bearing strategy also didn't work. It didn't make sense for many reasons, but this generated a research process that ended in a hybrid wall construction that is quite interesting. So here you can see the waste material came to site. Every week a truck would go around to all the processing plants and pick up their waste and then bring it to our site. And the process of laying these offcuts, I mean, it is really time consuming, but it's quite beautiful, and you really feel like the structure is grounded. I mean, you can feel that weight. So what we ended up doing was a hybrid wall construction. The offcuts are placed smooth side out, rough side in, and then rebar is put in the center, and we cast concrete at 2-foot increments as the walls came up. This image shows when 3 sides of the wall are exposed. And this is an image showing where we would have a plastered surface on the inside and the stone surface on the outside. So you can see here how the formwork just holds that in place. And this really captures the kind of rawness that is now embedded within the walls. Just a quick view as the foundations were coming up, and then as the walls were constructed. So this is a texture that you have to get close to really understand. From the distance, it might just look like a gray mass, but I think that double reading for us is quite interesting. Here you can see this moment. So at that line with Cyrus walking, this is the transition between inside and outside. So outside we have the stone clad on both sides with the concrete poured in the center, and then it transitions to a single side with just concrete where we'll plaster this wall. And for us as a practice, we spend a lot of time in the concept phase developing the ideas, working, sometimes our concepts are fast, sometimes they could take a year with all the back and forth with our clients. I mean, our end goal is that everyone is completely on board by the time we actually start the heavy-duty drawings and then construction. And so for us, the representation that we show when we're signing off on concept is it barely changes to the end result. And that's something that's really important to us. A lot of times clients or people from our office walk around the space and they're like, oh, we feel like we're in a 3D model, or we feel like the space is so familiar to us, and it's because they spent so much time with us studying it and working through it. So in the end, this is a home only for this family. It's not meant to be for anyone else. Their friends might not like it. We don't care, because we love it and they love it, and that's what's important. So just showing you, this is from the side of the house. This is facing a garden. It opens up more, capturing views of the hills, and that same render now under construction with the same view. So just this is going to be the family room with the bridge connecting the primary bedroom to the study and the staircase, and then a view of this under construction. And then here just showing the opacity from the road. And this is actually not the most flattering photo. We have to get a better one. But it is very opaque. And from a distance, you see all these plastered buildings around here with very dynamic sloped roofs, and this guy kind of is tucked away a little bit, and we're really looking forward to the landscape just taking over, and we're working with a great landscape designer from Bombay on this. So here's a moment with the bridge connecting across, so that partial level is where the family room is above. And then just looking at the way that the walls are constructed, you can see here the hybrid wall, the jali, and then the way that we're playing with wood on the interior to bring in some warmth. And another section here. Again, landscape moving up through the levels. That's something that's really important to us. And then the lightness of the space inside. So just a few more images from a recent site visit. This was a few days ago. So just showing the texture and the beauty. Here's you're at the bridge level, looking down into the living room. So you just get a sense of the scale by the craftsmen working there. This edge here. This will all be planters at the higher level, cascading down. And a few days ago when we were at site, I mean, with every project there's ups and downs. People get frustrated with time, with various things. But what was really nice is that we were standing in this location and our client was looking at the home, and she was like, I've taken pictures throughout this entire process, and for me, how this was made is so important. And she's like, I know it took time, but she's like, I understand the value. And so for us, in the end, that's what's important. We're not here to force a way of living or to force a technique on someone, but we really want it to be a collaborative experience that in the end feels like home. So as our studio passes its first 10-year milestone, we reflect on the challenges, opportunities, and learnings that have led us here today. We are a quiet practice, not bound by a particular style, but a clear sense of principles. We believe in relationships. responsible, honest design, and being a good neighbor. With each project, the parameters always lead to a different outcome, but we strive to evolve by capturing what is essential and what is meaningful. Thank you.